So, hello, friends. I'm Anshuman Tiwari, and this is my podcast and YouTube channel by the name Manage Better. I believe that irrespective of where we land in life, we can get better by managing with what we have. We have no control on where we land in life, but we definitely have control on where we are going and the journey that we have. And in this series of podcasts and videos that I bring to you, I speak to authors, consultants, speakers who connect deeply with the theme of manage better. And for the several past episodes, if you do want to check out, you can find my podcast on Apple, Google, and now Spotify as well. And if you are the video kind, some are. The same videos are also now available on YouTube. Again, search by my name or Manage Better. I will, of course, leave the links in the post when I do come up or do post this video. So, quickly coming to what is the topic for today. Digital transformation is the word that all of us are familiar with, but many of us will agree that not many understand fully what it is, right? So I tried to bring a speaker to you today who can distill this a little bit better for us, right? And so I bring to you today a digital transformation consultant from Melbourne, Australia, and someone whom I've had the pleasure of knowing and working with as well. So, friends, please welcome Nina, and she's founder principal at 36, a transformation consulting firm based out of Melbourne. We have worked together in the past. So, welcome, Nina.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great and very, very happy to be here.
Thanks, Nina. So Nina is passionate, a little bit about Nina. She's passionate about change and making our future a great place to live, work and play. I think, the addition of work and play is interesting because live, work and play is all we want to do. She believes that to get to this future, we need to improve and, improve the way we do things today, right? The future is, of course, out in the future, but we are doing things today that will take us there. And so that we have the tools to do it, we need to build capability, mindset, and make sure that our organizations are sustainable as we go through this cultural change. So I'm giving you a glimpse of what she does, and of course I'll bring her in to give more details. With a background across various variety of industries, corporate and startups, Nina is very passionate about leading, developing, and inspiring diverse teams to experiment and deliver valued solutions to drive optimized processes, products, and digital outcomes. Right. Like many of us, she started her career as a mechanical engineer, and that probably brings the concept of or the theme of trying to make everything better by designing things which work in a simple way, right? So, and I've seen this firsthand, her work on process improvement and stuff. She has significant experience in delivery and working with C-level and also at the functional management level leadership roles, and then brings all that experience into now her consulting practice, which is more about customer-centric transformation, customer-centric digital transformation, if you may want. So welcome, Nina, and any opening remarks if you have for our listeners and audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much again for inviting me and for being on your podcast and your YouTube channel. It's great to be here. And I think there's a really great alignment between the two things that we're sort of talking about. This whole podcast is about what you sort of say, managing better. That's not necessarily about, leadership, although it's incredibly important, but those day-to-day activities. When we start to look at digital transformation as well, and a lot of the work that we do, we talk about digital transformation across three key areas and bringing those things together, whether that be your customer experience or your service, the technology that ultimately delivers that, and your process. But what really makes it successful and sustainable, which you did speak about in that intro there, is your enabling factors, your people, your culture, your strategy. These are things that happen day in, day out that actually make these things a success. We can talk about the bigger picture and the technology at the heart of it, but it is the things that we do every single day that ultimately makes our transformation successful. So really excited about the two pieces coming together and having a chat to you today.
Sure. Thanks, Nina. I think I've always liked how you bring people, culture, strategy into the transformation part, because I've always believed that, and we can dispute the numbers, but most transformations are 95% about people, culture, this stuff, and 5% technology. You can bring the best of the technology, but if the people don't want it or are not aligned to it, or the culture doesn't let it work, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Whether digital or non-digital, 25 years ago, now 25 years down the line, it doesn't work. So with that, let's get rolling a little bit. So the first question, of course, I asked a few people, what would you like me to ask Nina? And the most overwhelmingly common question was, digital transformation is many things to many people, right? So yeah, it is, of course, all of us have our own definitions. Some are convenient definitions because that's what we know and no more. But you are an expert in this area, and you have now experience in with clients and in the market. So I would like to know from you, what is your take on what is digital transformation in your words?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, digital transformation, it's such a broad field. There are so many different things that digital transformation can mean and does mean, and if we look at the heart of it, it's ultimately changing our business from where we are today, which might be a very manual process, into a new and slightly more technical enabled business. Now, what that is going to be different for every single business that's out there. If you're a small business, you may already be fairly onto digital apps and digital platforms. If you're a larger business, then it may be a bit of a difference between them. It may be that you've got some really old legacy systems. It may be that your customer, your front-end experience may need updating. You may have manual processes. Those things can change, and the level of digitization that's going to be applicable for you and your approach is going to be different depending on what you're trying to achieve, the outcomes that you're wanting, and your customer goals at the end of the day. So digital transformation, there isn't a clear-cut answer. It is about ultimately moving your business from where it is today to a more digitized place in the future that meets your needs and your outcomes.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks, Nina. I think this kind of may ring a bell with most of our listeners, because when I speak to people around this topic, and I say that, look, don't worry if you're confused about the definition of digital transformation. We don't have to define it, as long as we are getting better from where we are to a better state in the future. And it's the best you can do. And you bring technology into it, you bring digitization into it, you bring new age tools into it, and are helping your employees, customers, stakeholders, getting a better life out of it. We are fine. So we don't have to write a definition as such. So glad that you agree.
Absolutely. I was going to say, it really boils down to what is it that you need or want to achieve, right? What is it that your customer goals or your employee outcomes are that you're focusing on, and then how you plan to get there. And that's going to be your digital transformation. So there isn't one hard, fast, right? Once you get to here, then you've digitally transformed. It's not that 100% of your systems need to be digital. It really is going to focus on what is the experience and the end-to-end service that you're trying to create.
Yeah, and it's pretty much, and like many of us, you have a background in quality and process excellence. I have one. In early days in our quality field as well, there was a lot of debate around what is the definition of quality. And all the people who ever actually got anything done would say that, look, don't worry, don't worry about the definition. Just make sure that you don't get, if you are having a lot of errors, reduce those errors, that's quality. If you're delivering late to a customer, start doing it faster in lesser turnaround time, that's quality for you. And I think pretty much the same thing applies to transformation and digital as well. So yeah, thanks, Nina. So that's probably a good segue into something that I wanted to ask. And this is like story time, So you've worked with a lot of clients now over the last few years, and earlier as well as a corporate executive, several war stories would be there. So what is your top war story, and when I say war, it doesn't have to be negative. No one has to lose in a war, but any story that or excellent transformation that you think defines your work, would you like to share it with our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one that I'll refer to is some work that we're doing with a university in Melbourne. And, it's not a war story, but it does show where a lot of our organizations are and the journey that they take, right? This also isn't an overnight fix. This is a roadmap and a plan in which success happens, but it's about the steps that you take along the way to get there. So this particular university called us in because they were dealing with problems, quality issues, time delays, etc., for their student admission process in particular. And it was really around how do we start to move the dial, right? So how do we start to, one, just overcome the problems that we've got, and then three or two, look at, what do we need to do in the short term, and three, look at that longer term roadmap around where we're going. We had sort of an initial engagement of 4 weeks to go in, understand what the problem was, really understand who our community, our clients, etc., were, what it was that they were dealing with, and bringing in all that information, the data, the systems that they were using. So there was some heavily paper-based things. There was a lot of Excel spreadsheets, and showing in terms of the way in which these students are kind of engaged and what that process looked like. We worked with the team for a little while. We did a kind of across a couple of different areas. We looked at the strategy, said, where do you want to be? What's the overall university strategy? What does that look like? What are the goals, the outcomes that you're trying to achieve? Again, bringing back to what is the digital transformation you're looking for, relates to what is the actual strategy that you're going to for the first place. We looked at the process, mapped it out, again, really back to some of those core tools and those core existing things in terms of what are we doing and how are we doing it, really to understand where the ins and outs of the process. We looked at the technology that they had, the data that they were using, and the people. What was the culture that was being created? And what we started to do with these pieces of information is we brought them together to really understand what was the transformation that needed to happen. And we paved out a roadmap for them, which was, here is where you need to be in the next 3 months, really, not even 6 months, 3 months of fighting fires. How do you take yourself away from fighting fires? And if we bring it and link it back into that manage better place, this is exactly that. It was about how do we manage better with what we've got today, the tools, the systems, utilizing, etc., some of those things, those basic things as part of what we do. Capacity management, using the tools and systems, using data that we didn't really understand before in that 3-month period to fight those fires and get us into a stable position. Then we looked at a 3 to 12 month time and said, great, well, what should we be doing then? How can we slowly start to advance, bring on new technologies, expand into different areas, look at how we can use that data to have a data lake, to align across different systems that they were using, etc. So started to slowly expand out and bring on that view. And in that 3 to 12 month time, look at then, well, what business cases, etc., do you need to be doing, or getting the support and funding you need for the longer term roadmap of, your one customer tool or whichever technology, and we're technology agnostic to what that looked like. So that was the roadmap that we put together after 4 to 6 weeks. And as we talk about this being a success story, we're asked to come back in at that 6 month time frame. So after we've been there for 6 months and look at, well, how did they go? Were they still fighting fires? Had they taken on board those different improvements? And what would we recommend for the next 6 to 12 months time? It was really, really pleasing to see that when we came in at that 6 month time period, that they had implemented all of those basic things for that first 3 months and had got themselves out of fighting fire. They were starting to use more digital means. And now they're sort of 18 months down into that journey. We're starting to see more of those digital. They're starting to look more at those bigger tools and start to create this customer experience, aligning back up to their data sources and bringing that together to be digital. Now, that doesn't mean for them that there won't be manual processes, because for them, they need that manual interaction in terms of actually assessing some of those views at this point in time. But they are slowly starting to move towards their digital roadmap and how they get there. What is also great to see is that this is being driven by their team, by their people. So it's about coming from internal to say, hey, what do we need to do to progress us into that digital space, into those digital areas to help our customers out?
Oh, this is awesome. I'm so glad you brought in a university as an example, because I've believed for a long time that it's the 3 areas that need the maximum transformation in any country across the world, and more so in developing countries, is education, healthcare, and agriculture. And these 3 areas, if we fix, the rest of it is already fixed. So I've myself done some work as a consultant earlier with an education institute and a corporate management training company as well, and couple of small hospitals as well. So I totally know that the need is even more there, and the desire and the hunger to get better is actually even stronger there. So glad you brought in education, and
Yeah.
I'm sure this company, this particular university will be better off. So you in your response, you did bring in in some kind of a, I hate to use the word template, but there is no template for anything, but some kind of a 5 steps with Nina to or with 3-6 to get digitally transformed, or whatever number of steps. Would you like to then, or is it possible to bring in some kind of step 1, 2, 3? If somebody wants to work with you for, like, let's say, for 3 months, which is, I call it 100 days kind of thing, work with us for 100 days, and then we take it forward. So what would be those few steps from a regular company, maybe mid-scale, not too large, not too small, and then, how should they approach it, particularly if they're working with you?
Yeah, and I think that it's about a partnership, right? So again, one of the key things that we talk about at 3-6, and when I started up 3-6 Consulting as well, I didn't want to be just go in and lend my services. I want to upskill the people that we're working with and leave everyone off in a better off position than what they were then when we started. I think that's really, really important that we work together, we share skills, and we share that knowledge to uplift. So when we talk about that 100-day plan in terms of what are we doing and what does that look like, the first kind of month, almost couple of weeks to month, is going to be really understanding where you are today, right? So I speak about a lot. What is it that you're trying to achieve? What are the goals and the outcomes that what you're trying to get to? And working together to really understand and go deep dive into that. Bringing together your process, your technology, your roadmaps, your investment strategy. How or do these things link together at all? What's the outcome that you want to achieve? Interviewing a range of different people and pulling together those insights. So the first month is really about driving those insights and driving the changes that you want to see, and what is it that you're after in that 90-day plan. As we start to go then into steps 2 or steps 3, as we sort of build out, it's around then focusing, right? What are the gaps that you had in your transformation? What was it that what you wanted to focus on? Did you want to focus, for example, on improving your service and your customer experience at the front? Is this a new app development that you need, a new way or a new revenue streams to engage in your process? That may be one. But you're also, for you, digitization might actually be around improving your back-end services, right? Improving the way in which you engage, moving off some old legacy technologies into new different areas and new spaces. So that could be what it means for you. So again, once we figured out in that deep dive, it's then creating that roadmap to say, okay, well, we know where you are and where you want to get to. We now need to start to create that plan of what that looks like. And we can do that in a few, sort of alongside that. And then laying out the steps in terms of how we get there. So what are the things that we can teach, engage, learn, break down into bite-sized pieces that says, great, we're going to analyze it. We might have to map it. We then need to put up a roadmap for success. Do we need business plans or investment decisions, etc.? What is it that you need to do? And that can be, from a, sorry, that's my dog in the background. Hold on, sorry, might have to do that again. Coco. Sorry.
No problem.
You okay?
I don't actually mind, if the dog wants to come in. So that makes the whole thing a little bit more authentic, and I might keep this video, so don't worry.
She's sleeping in the background. I've been on a few meetings where she's been snoring lately, so she's got a new little bed up here. But yes, as I was saying, that second, we can move into it. But as I was saying, that second and third step then is really understanding what those plans are for you. And if we talk about it from an individual's perspective, it's going to be, and the teams that we deal with every single day, it's going to be understanding, where are you today? What does a day look like for you? And how can we improve that using the tools and technologies? What can you start to do that relays that information, that presents that back? So if I was going to summarize it into 3 sort of key steps, the first one is we need to figure out, where you are right now. What are your goals? Where are your views? What are your strategy? What are you trying to get to? That whole kind of perspective to begin with. Are you on track? All of that deep dive kind of component. So there's lots of different steps around that area. The second part is then really focusing on creating that plan. So what is it that you want to focus on? Because we can't do everything in one go. We need to prioritize and figure out what it is. And then 3, working out, do you have the right people, the resources, who needs to have this knowledge within your business to progress and move you forward? So around those key areas. So therefore, kind of the key 3 areas that I'd begin with as we start to go out and build out what this plan could look like for yourselves.
I think that kind of sums up for any transformation, and this is what I keep telling people, that ultimately transformation is about figuring where you are, where you want to go, having a plan and sticking to it, or working on it, right? whether it is digital or anything else in, in the past, in the future, transformation will not change. And it is personal transformation also, right? Some years ago when I started running to lose weight initially, it was exactly the same, right? Where you are, how much can you run today? Where do you want to go? So I put myself up for a marathon, which was, everybody laughed at that time, but I did finally eventually manage. And I use that metaphor or story quite often in my sessions that, that's what some kind of transformation is, right? So cool. So I think, the other part, Nina, I wanted to definitely speak to you about is why the name 3-6, so what's about 3-6?
3-6 aligns to our values and is very close to my heart, but it was a company that I started up when I was 18. So 3-6 was, it's my birthday, which was the 3rd of June. And when I was 18, I started up this particular company, and I needed an ABN ultimately. So the name came from there. But why I stuck with it and what resonated with me around this was 3-6 back in the day when I was 18, I was tutoring students across Melbourne, Victoria. So I would go and I would drive out to these students' house and I would teach them in maths and science and English, and I would teach different kids every week and then develop some relationships with some. It was kind of on a through an agency aspect around those. But for me, it was really interesting because it was all about teaching people and giving people the skills in which that they needed for their life. Similar to what we spoke about when we mentioned, what I want 3-6 consulting to be is to give people the skills, not to come in and do things to you. So not to transform, as we've seen some places do, but actually help you transform. You use that metaphor of the marathon. I think it's a really, really fantastic experience. I also have I signed up for my first marathon 10 years ago now and have run one every year since. And again, similarly, people laughed at me when I said I was going to run my first. But you can't force someone to do that, because you can't force someone to put in the training, the hours, the time that it takes to build that. And similarly with this, you need to train and coach and develop them and change their mindsets. And that's what we like to do. We want to train and coach and develop and help people change their mindsets to get them to where they need to be and what that cultural transformation for digital actually is.
So that's awesome, actually. So kind of wrapping up, moving ahead on this discussion. I don't want this to end, but it has to. So you brought in teaching, and to be a good teacher, you have to be a good learner as well. And I've seen that firsthand. Some years ago, I think maybe a couple of years ago, you did a course with MIT on digital transformation. What was the motivation, and any capsules that you can share with our listeners, and what did you learn in a nutshell? Obviously, if somebody has to learn more, they should do the course, but any summary?
Absolutely. So the first question you asked is why, right? Why learning? Why go on and do this? It was, for me, learning is essential, right? Particularly in an experience or in a career as a consultant, we need to be taking in the best, the newest ideas into different companies and showing them what they can do and how they can do things differently. So I love learning. I want to be continuously stretching my brain and thinking about how we can do things differently and support and learn. And so I'm always going to be pushing myself to be at that forefront. The MIT course was a summer school. It was done June, July last year, so 2019. And I would have gone again or done something a bit different this year if we weren't locked in our houses, but I'm doing more online training these days. But for me, that's really essential. So I wanted to go over, I wanted to see something different and learn from one of these renowned institutions. And the MIT course was fantastic. And I've got a bookshelf just behind where you can't see. And there are lots of different books that are written by the MIT crew. They provide some great insights. They work with large organizations to help to understand what works in digital transformation and what doesn't, and starting to bring that back and consolidate that down into models. I spoke briefly when I spoke before about digital versus digitizing. They talk this concept of digital is great. This is the experience, the apps. It's really essential when we start to view that. Our customers want to engage in that way. But we've also got digitize, which is to clean up that back end system and understanding how do you balance these things between digital and digitize. So do you just go off and create a brand new shiny app and use your manual processes in the background? Or do you sort of take the approach of digitizing in the background and then, having a manual experience? Or what can you do and what's the approach to building up both? So they presented models around that kind of aspect. We spoke a lot about data and how to use data in our different roles. We spoke a lot about the employee experience and customer experience. and how actually creating a wonderful and brilliant employee experience in our own companies actually creates a better customer experience, and you get much more higher returns for your investment in your projects if you actually invest in your employee experience as well. So they presented some models, they showed some great things. I've written some blogs about it, probably that are also in my links and my bios with a bit more detail, but it was a brilliant learning experience, and I would recommend everyone to go. You meet great people as always in these events. I'm also a big advocate of getting out to conferences, attending the events, but also networking, right? So some of the best learning that we do is peer-to-peer, like this here, learning off different people, understanding how they've applied things and implemented things. I think it's really, really important. And that's how we stretch, and that's how we continue to be better and transform.
Yeah, so this is turning out to be a masterclass actually, Nina, because I just wanted a window into your mind as to you running your own company, you're fairly successful, you've had a good career and many more years still, but you had not only the motivation but also the execution to go ahead and do this learning experience that you had, and you continue to learn. And I actually wanted you to say this for our audience, that there are people out there, guys who are willing to train and retrain themselves into new skills. The world will keep changing for us every 5 years and maybe faster in the future. And we can't be moaning and groaning that, the world has changed and it is different from what I was 5 years ago. Glad that you brought in this aspect of learning, continuous learning, and also to apply and network and learn from others, when there is, like, as you said, we are doing this, we are learning from each other as we speak, and we'll take this knowledge with us. Last question. The last question is pretty much a common question for all my speakers, and shouldn't be a surprise to you, but it may be difficult to choose. So what is that one book, and one is important, what is that one book you will recommend to our listeners and audience on a subject of your choice? Ideally, if it is digital transformation, or if you could pick anything else as well. What is that one book?
So for me, it's interesting. And again, that one book is really hard. I'm not going to go with a book on digital transformation. I think there's a lot out there. And again, you can go to some of my friends at MIT. There's some great ones there that they've just released. But mine is going to be more around mindsets and the way that we think. Because again, as we mentioned, I think that to embed successfully digital transformations, it's all about how we think and the people and the approach. So this one is called Drunk Tank Pink. And it's by Adam Alter. And it's a great book, and it's around mindsets. It's around again, I won't give too much away but it's a very good book around understanding the human psyche and ways in which we sort of can develop that kind of area. So
no, thanks, Nina, and we would look forward to you writing a book so that we can all read and get a window into your mind and experience one day. So thanks for this. So that pretty much wraps up our session today, or this episode, Nina. If you had any closing comments or anything at all, up to you.
I'd say the closing comment is linking it back to that starting point. So again, digital transformation shouldn't be something that happens to us. It should be something that we get involved in and involved with, and help to shape and navigate what that transformation looks like based on our experience with the customers that we deal with, the processes that we're in, the technology that we're building. These are key elements that help to shape what that transformation needs to be. So again, don't let something sort of happen and wash over to you, but contribute. Think about how you can help to transform to make your day, and therefore your experience and your customers' experience, a better place to be.
Thanks very much, Nina. So friends, there we go, again, a masterclass on digital transformation, lots of examples, tips and tricks that you can use. If you want to carry one lesson, of course, is that digital transformation is first transformation, then digital, right? So I got that as a capsule in this session, is that like every transformation, you decide where you are, where you want to go, have a plan, and get at it. So thanks once again, Nina, for this wonderful session. We'll wrap this up now. And to my audience, listeners, this session and all previous sessions, like I mentioned, are all available now on various podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, and Google. If you want to check all these links, they are all on the Buzzsprout site that I manage now. And of course, like I said, if you are the video kind, this will be available on a video as well. on YouTube. So take your pick. We are trying to do what we can. Different consumers have different consumption patterns, so use that. And thanks for being a regular audience. I'll keep bringing different speakers, a range of speakers to you. Till then, till the next episode, keep managing better. Thank you.